Hi, my name is Christoph from CBR Technology in California. Today I want to go over the distribution wholesale industry specific functionality of Business Central version 24, released in May of 24 by Microsoft. Cloud-based ERP solution, obviously. In the distribution wholesale industry, we typically focus on some of the following items that you see here. General ledger, banking, AR, AP, fixed assets. None of those modules typically make an impact on the selection of systems if you compare Microsoft to other solution providers in that field. What does make a difference are the inventory management related functionality. I'm going to go over a number of them in this presentation. Obviously, the extended item setups are critical. Multiple unit of measures, capability of generating variants, substitution tracking, and the ability to do item references are quite critical in the wholesale industries. Also, replenishment policy definitions, including the ability to do forecast demand scheduling for any items in question. A demand forecast in Business Central is referring to the ability to generate seasonal item fluctuations from month to month or period to period that can be configured as part of the demand forecast. We'll be going over any of these items in greater detail later in the video. Also, purchase pricing and vendor configurations, multiple vendor purchase sources, the ability to get different purchase prices at different quantity breaks in different currencies for different date ranges. Those sort of features are captured in that bullet point right there. Again, I will go over those in greater detail momentarily. Of course, you also expect sophisticated advanced sales prices. They could be either prices or discounts. So if you work in an industry or that it is driven by discounts off an MSRP versus a straight sale price, the software can easily handle that. You can group customers into pricing groups. You can do quantity breaks. You can do date sensitivity to pricing, currency sensitivity to pricing. All of those features are standard in Business Central. The other big item is is landed cost in the distribution wholesale industry, of course. So that would be the idea of having a cost that is related to bringing the item into a particular warehouse, such as ocean freight, air freight, brokerage fees, demurrage, harbor fees, what have you, that is associated to the cost of the item, but it's not payable to the manufacturer of the item or the source of the item that you purchased it from. Microsoft Business Central offers a number of choices in this area to allow to assign this value based on either cube, weight, value, or quantity for the related transaction. It also continues into not just purchase transactions where you would of course expect it, but you can also assign these costs to sales transactions, transfer transactions as well, and of course customer returns. So you have the ability to have quite a flexible configuration when it comes to the costing structures of the item. Drop shipments and special order support in the sales order processing module. The ability to support the Shopify e-commerce platform out of the box. EDI support with either SPS or TrueCommerce, which both offer native Business Central plugins that work with Business Central and give you full capability of addressing EDI requirements directly within Business Central. Of course, the ability to transact a transfer order that allows you to move product from one warehouse to the other, including an indirect option where you have to go via a LTL carrier or some other shipping carrier in between, which will introduce a multi-day delay. The ability to create assembly orders that are auto-created based on sales transactions is also part of this system configuration. And then finally, the newly added Copilot or AI-suggested sales order addition capability on sales order transactions. So that is basically in plain English writing something like add 2 units of item A and 4 units of item B, and the software will translate that basic text, which you could copy paste from an email from a client or a customer into that screen. And it will translate that in the proper selection of the item. So these are some of the highlights I've chosen to show you in the distribution wholesale industry edition of Business Central. I believe a lot of these are mission critical to allow you to deploy a ERP system in those industries properly. So I will now proceed and show you what this looks like in Business Central. So this is Kronos USA version 24, Business Central, released in May 24. And in a sample company, obviously Kronos USA. I want to show you some of the inventory features we discussed in item extended configuration on this particular item here. So this is some of the data you'll find in the sample company. As you can see here, you have item configuration and setup, including a sidebar called a fact box, which shows you information like images, marketing text, item attributes, and forecast information. You can toggle this on and off just by hitting that toggle button here, and it just takes it in and out. I'm going to leave it off for now just to kind of maximize our video experience here. Of course, you have an item number description, kind of common things you're looking for, type of items, concept of base unit of measure versus multiple unit of measure. So base unit of measure is internally referring to the unit of measure in which you wish to reflect a quantity on hand. So when you just do a regular quantity on hand screen, what is that unit defined to be? If you go look into the item configurations here, you'll find a unit of measure setup that you can go in here on this particular item. For the purpose of exercise of demo here, I wanted to show you these choices that you can set up an example of pieces, sets, and pallets, where the same item is in various unit of measures, and you can define cube and weight information in accordance with these choices. This is the multi-unit of measure capability in the system. Another idea is that the same item might exist in multiple colors. So this particular item we carry in 3 different colors, black, gray, and white. And rather than setting up 3 separate items in the item database, I wish to have just a single item with these choices defined as what Microsoft refers to as a variant. So a variant is a identical item that just has a slight difference in appearance. In the textile industry, you might put this down as your measurements, small, medium, large. In this particular case, we have this particular swivel chair in 3 different leather colors. And as you can see here, you have very granular control over phasing these items in and out over time. So if you, for example, have some additional inventory of gray is not selling well, and you want to phase it out over time, you could block the purchasing of it to prevent purchasing agents from buying more of that item. And then once you sold out of it, you can block the sale from happening and block the variant completely. So in addition to having the same choices for the item as a whole, you actually have these choices for each variant as well. Please note that variants are optional. You do not have to use them, but they do make your life quite easy if you have items that have various options to them. And you can certainly do that in the configuration of the system. In addition to these variant options and a unit of measures that we just discussed, you also have the ability to do extended text. So extended text is the idea of needing to have additional information about the item that is beyond the basic description that you see on the top screen part of the screen right here. And if I go to extended text, you'll see in this particular sample I set you up with sales description and purchase description that may differ from each other. So as you have extended text, you have the ability to create multiple lines with many more information about the item. In here, there's no limit to how many lines you can have in this section. You can have a date range to it as to when these text messages or additional text items will appear in the system. And then you have control over what type of transactions these extended text messages appear. So this particular one is all in sales transactions, sales quotes, sales orders, sales invoices, but not any of the purchasing transactions. Another common thing is to put descriptions on a quote, but not on an order, or on a quote and not on an invoice. So you can do all of that quite easily in the system, as you can see here. Also, you have, of course, purchasing descriptions. So here I have purchase-related descriptions that I am not showing on sales transactions. So all of the sales transactions are blanked out, but I am showing them on all the purchasing transactions. So that's a very cool feature called extended text. And I have that turned on for this sample item as well. Finally, there are, of course, substitutions as well. So this is quite critical in many parts of the system, including taking a sales order or sales quote for an item. And if I was out of the item, I could say, okay, instead of selling them the Mexico chair, I'm going to sell them the Moscow swivel chair, which is basically identical. So I can, do a quick reference during sales order entry screen to move around in that section of the item-related information. If I go back to my item setup, in addition to the items we already covered. I also would like to point out identifiers. So what are identifiers? Identifiers are for warehouse management and or inventory management purposes. I might have different codes for the same item in different configurations and variants, as you can see here. So not only can you have a different identification code for the same item in different unit of measures, but you can also do that in variants and a combination of the two, as you can see here in this example. Finally, going back to the item setup, I also have the ability to configure item references. So item references are the notion that you can have customer specific information where I can say this customer buys this particular item in this particular variant, and put that in with their own custom description as well as date sensitivity. So this allows me to create basically a customer catalog that's specific to that customer only. And so this is a very important feature. So for example, if I just want to see, let's say, Trey customer items, I can put the item code in here, and these are all the tray items that company buys from us. As you can see here, they just buy 3 items on there. So even though I have thousands of items in my database, with this customer catalog feature, you only see those items that they actually purchase from you. Of course, this will be reflected in the sales order entry screen as well. All right, so that's kind of a basic sense of the item setup with regards to the basic configuration. And now I'll transition into the purchase prices as well. You can do purchase prices and purchase discounts, one referring to a percentage of an MSRP, one referring just to straight dollar amount, which is this one here. When you look in this area here as well, you can see that it's specific to a vendor. The unit of measure, you can put quantity breaks on there, and you can put down a date range as well. Of course, this is also multi-currency, which is a column I currently have blended out of the system. But in here, you can set up a vendor catalog that you can actually import in the system also. So these are the purchase prices you can configure. And then with regards to sales prices, you have similar capabilities in here where you can set up customer pricing by customer group. For all customers, or a campaign-specific feature. So campaigns are marketing campaigns that can be set up, like Black Friday specials or 4th of July specials or things like that, where you have a specific date range for just a few days during which a very unique pricing will appear for that. Again, this will be item number, variant, unit of measure reference, and quantity referenced as well. And of course, date range as well. So it's a maximum number of flexibility with regards to the item pricing structure for the given item that is selected. You can do that by straight dollar amount, and you can do it by a discount percentage off an MSRP as well. So this is the extended item setup. And I'd like to move into the advanced replenishment features here momentarily. So now I'm back to the home screen on Kronos USA, and I'm selecting a demand forecast functionality I'd like to discuss in greater detail. So I've created multiple years worth of demand forecasts. Some of them can be generated automatically. There's a Copilot feature, AI, that helps you do that if you have enough history in the system automatically. I ended up doing this one manually. When you do demand forecasts, you can do them by location, which is quite critical if you're a larger operation with multiple warehouses and you need to separate demand forecast depending on location. So there's an option to turn that on or off. Finally, when you get to the item itself, so in my case here, I have 1968 is the item in question, which is the Mexican swivel chair. As you can see here, I can put in multiple quantities by month. So in the view by option here, I can do by day, by week, by month, by quarter. So we have full capability of changing the period in question on the demand forecast easily. So this can be used then when you do a requisition worksheet or a demand planning tool that's built into the software that looks at this demand forecast and will recommend a replenishment policy based on these quantities that you've entered in this section. So in this section, we want to talk about vendor setups real quick and pricing information about vendors or costing, acquisition costing about items that we'd like to configure. So a couple items in here. When you go to related purchase vendor information for the item, you'll have the ability to note down multiple vendors from whom you can purchase this particular item. Of course, they have their own item numbers with the vendor item number reference on there that will print on POs, and lead time that's separate from vendor to vendor that you can configure in here. In addition to that, you can then set up prices and prices discounts for these particular vendors. So if I go to purchase prices, you can see here I configured advanced purchase pricing for this particular item. I'd like to note that this item is not purchased in pieces, but it's purchased by pallets. So when I buy this particular chair, I cannot buy one piece or a set, but I have to buy an entire pallet. And then the pallet pricing is, in addition to that, quantity sensitive. So this example is a bit more sophisticated. In addition to quantity breaks for pallets, I've also put down date sensitivity on this. So this is a 2024 pricing versus the 2025 pricing that you can see here with an increase that was already communicated with us. And I can put it in now. And as soon as 1/1/25 rolls around, the new cost will pop up on the purchase orders based on this table configuration and the quantity that has been selected. So this is a very sophisticated pricing structure that you can set up in here. There's a copy price feature as well. So if you just want to do that, you can do that also from one vendor to another or from one year to another, depending on, your maintenance of the pricing that has been communicated with the vendor. So that's your vendor configuration for the same item, including the cost structure for the item as well. The next item I'd like to show you is the sales price configuration. Again, you can set up sales prices by either discount, again as a discount off an MSRP, or as a straight dollar amount, which is what I would like to show you. If I go to sales prices, I configured a few configurations in here or samples in here, as you can get a sense for the capabilities of the software. So you can set up pricing groups, so you don't have to set up prices for individual customers, but you can just say, okay, I'm setting up 3 or 4 groups of customers, and as I set up a new customer, I simply place that customer inside of one of the groups, and then whatever pricing is related to that gets activated automatically. In my case, I've set up commercial accounts, retail accounts, and national accounts as 3 different choices. And I'd like you to note that in this price table, you can make the pricing also variant specific, which again is optional. You don't have to use this. But it is a nice feature to where, example, in this particular case, the white leather chair is selling much better than the black one, and it does cost more to produce. So I want to make a different pricing structure for the white variant of that same chair. As you can see here, you can do that quite easily. All the pricing in this case happens to be by the PCS unit of measure, but you can certainly set up pricing by any unit of measure variant that option you like. And I'd like you to also note the date sensitivity on there as well. So if you are increasing prices at the end of the year or the end of the quarter, and you want to, make sure that the proper pricing is active, you can certainly use these dates to activate that functionality on there as well. Finally, you can do customer specific pricing. So as you can see here, I have one customer that I negotiated a special deal with, and even though that customer may be in one of the other pricing groups, whatever pricing is activated for that particular customer here will override the selection of the group at the time of placing the quote or the order. And then finally, another very cool feature is the ability to add campaign-specific pricing. So marketing campaigns are certain activities you're taking on during the year. In my case here, I set up a 4th of July special. So if you place the order between the 1st of July and the 6th of July, you're going to get a special price on this item if you activate the campaign. As you can see here, that is different than any of the other pricing that you see on the software. Now you might ask, well, what does the software use if there is multiple choices that might theoretically apply? And the answer is simply whatever is the lowest out of these choices that have been configured in that pricing setup. Landed cost is a massive issue for most wholesale organizations, as freight charges have been quite impacted by recent developments in the fuel market, and cost of shipping products around the world have skyrocketed in general. Landed cost is the ability to take a unrelated invoice and add the cost of that invoice to a previous inventory related transaction. Classic example would be I purchase an item from overseas. I bring it into the United States, and I have to pay a container charge or air freight charge or some sort of transportation related expense to the value of the item, because the landed cost is comprised out of the original purchase value of the item plus whatever expenses I incurred to get the item into my warehouse in the United States. So how do you do that? In Business Central, you have the ability to utilize what's called item charges. So here I am in the purchase invoice screen. I'm doing a regular accounts payable invoice. I'm just going to create a brand new transaction. Just going to hit new. I'm going to select my brokerage account, international broker that handles all of my international shipments, and they send me a bill. So this is not the manufacturer or the original vendor to whom I issued the purchase order. This is a separate bill from a separate vendor that I will relate to the appropriate purchase order in a separate step. So again, I'll just pick that brokerage company, and of course I give it an invoice number and an invoice date and all these wonderful fields. But then in here, when it comes to items, I'm going to use a function called item charges. And in here, I've configured a few sample transaction line items that you can see here, including ocean freight and air freight. So I'm going to grab ocean freight, and I was charged for a container. So I'm going to put a container ID on here if I want to do that, and have that listed on there. I'm going to say quantity 1, and let's say they charged me $4,000 for this 40-foot container to come into the United States. And now I have a $4,000 charge. But because I didn't use a regular GL account or a regular item, I'm not buying an item or I'm not directly expensing it out, but I rather want to add this $4,000 to the value of the inventory that was purchased. So how to go about doing that? Again, all you need to do is use an item charge that you need to configure, and then in the item charge assignment, you have the ability to associate this particular item with a bunch of receipts. So I'm going to go in here and say, okay, here's all my receipts, and here you can go across multiple POs, multiple line items, which is the whole point of this. And you can say, okay, on this particular container, I received all of these POs and all of these line items. So in here, you can see one PO with 2 items on it, as you can see in this sample listing. Once I hit OK, all these items get transferred over, and now I have a choice. I can manually allocate the amounts to the $4,000 to each line item, or I can just hit this button here that just goes in and gives me a few choices on how I can allocate this. So in my case here, I can say by amount, by weight, by volume, or just equally across the board. Most of my clients do amount, but quite popular also is either weight or volume. Volume probably mostly for containers shipping internationally. Anyways, if I go to amount, I'll just have this, and the software breaks down the $4,000 into the line-specific amount that's being computed. Now, what will happen when I post this invoice, it will take these dollar amounts here and will add them to the value of the item. So all of these items will become more expensive in the cost section of my system, and I will have additional records in my value audit tables that refer to that particular line item. So this is landed cost within Business Central. The next item of relevance is the ability to do drop shipments and special orders on a sales order. So I'm going to now show you a sales order screen. I'm just going to be in the sales order section here. I'm going to hit a brand new transaction. Of course, I have the ability to create different types of orders. So in my case here, I'm separating DSD orders from regular orders. It'll have different order numbers that get assigned depending on my choice. Of course, there's no limit to how many types of sales orders you can have. You then pick the customer that you wish to, process the sales order for. In my case here, I can then also put in a purchase order number and an opportunity number that it might relates to. But when I get to the item selection section here, I have the ability to search by item number, which is my regular 1,000 of item database lookup, or you can search by item reference. So item reference is actually the ability to only see catalog specific items. As you can see here, I have all of the tray items that pop up only. In fact, I could only type in their particular item number, tray 1000B, for the black variant of that particular item. And this is the function that I wanted to show you. If this was a drop shipment, so this is vendor shipping directly to the customer without going through your warehouse, it'll be a drop shipment. If it's a special order, is a vendor still shipping it? but going from them to your warehouse, but it's noted as a special order, so it's earmarked and reserved for that particular transaction directly. So that's what drop shipment and special orders are, and you can activate these functionalities on the sales order line item with a simple click of the checkbox in this section. One of the key issues is also integration with e-commerce and EDI platforms that I discussed at the beginning of this video. So now built into Business Central version 24, you'll find a completely and upgraded Shopify integration as well. So right here from my home screen, if I'm logged in as a business manager, you'll see the ability to integrate Business Central with the Shopify system immediately. So this is not just a Shopify B2B product, but also the D2C, direct to consumer, as well as the POS Shopify solution as well. And what does get synchronized between Business Central and Shopify? And these are an indication as to what you can expect, right? So it interfaces customers and does bisynchronous synchronization between customers and products, as well as orders in the system as well. Of course, it supports multiple Shopify stores. So if you have multiple digital presences in Shopify, that will be defined in the shops. Of course, the orders will come across from Shopify into Business Central. You can handle refunds from within the system and returns. It manages the gift cards as well, which is a quite critical e-commerce implementation typically. Certainly you can audit your transactions directly within the system, and it even handles your payouts from the Shopify system within Business Central. So this is a very comprehensive, very highly integrated solution that Microsoft offers without any third party. This is supported by Microsoft. This is not a third party product that acts as an interface. Certainly there's many choices out there to integrate Shopify with Business Central, but now in version 24 that's no longer needed, and it's supported by Microsoft and your Microsoft partner like CBR Technology. And this would be the ability to handle all of these e-commerce integration points directly from within Business Central. Now, the critical functionality for those organizations that have multiple warehouses are the transfer orders. So this is the ability to move products from one warehouse to the other without using a sales order or purchase order type of transaction. So this is simply a transfer without a third party involved. So how do you do that? You create a transfer order as a new transaction here. You tell the system from what warehouse to which other one you go, which is the ability to indicate multiple warehouses, as you can see here, including the ability to do in-transit transaction. So if I, for example, do an LTL transfer and it'll be on the truck for, let's say, 4 days to get from my main warehouse to my East Coast warehouse, I can certainly do that with the in-transit code here as well. If you do have warehouses that are very close to each other and the transfer period is very short, you can also do a direct transfer, which moves it directly from one warehouse to the other without using an in-transit code. Finally, you do go in and you specify the items that are being transferred, including, of course, the ability to specify a variant code and the quantity that's being transferred in various unit of measures. So, for example, if I'm moving pallets around the warehouse, as I have potentially in my system here, I can do that quite easily in there. Also, when you then post, you post the ability to do ship and or receive separately from each other. So when it leaves your warehouse in the main warehouse, you post a shipper, and then 3, 4, 5 days later, when it gets to the East Coast warehouse, you post a receiver, and that will close out the transfer order. So again, a mission critical functionality in a warehouse, multi-warehouse configuration that you might deploy as a wholesaler. Another important function for distribution wholesale organization is the ability to assemble items as marketing kits or quick assemblies as part of the process. So in my example here of the Kronos USA company, you see a conference bundle, which is made out of the table and the chairs and a few hours of time to put it together. And in the definition of the item, you'll see the assembly to order function in here. You can make an item assembled to stock or assembled to order. I'm going to do an assembled to order and show you the items that make up the kit. In this case, it's 1 table, 8 chairs, and an hour of somebody's time to put it all together. And this is the example of the definition of an item. And when I go into a sales order in the software, so I'm creating a brand new sales order from scratch, and I pick a customer of ours in the system. So let's say Trade Research buys this conference table. So I'm going to put the conference table on here, and let's say it's the 8 bundle here, and it's going to be out of my main warehouse, and let's say they need quantity 2 on there. What will happen under the hood is that it'll create a assembly order automatically without you having to do a separate transaction, and that assembly order is linked to the sales order so that these transactions are related to each other. In fact, they're related in such a fashion that the system will actually post the assembly order when the sales order gets posted as well. And if I now look in my assembly order screen, I will find that there's a new assembly order in the system, and if I pull this up, it's in fact made out of, it's related to this item, to quantity 2. It's linked to the sales order. As you can see here, I can click on this yes, and actually shows me the underlying sales order that triggered this assembly order, which is the Trade Research transaction. And of course, you can see the components in here, which include the variant as well for that particular Mexico chair that's being involved in there. And this will create the actual assembly order. And I can then certainly print this order confirmation or assembly order to my warehouse as a separate transaction, not the sales order, but there's an assembly order that says, hey, make me 2 of these conference kits, and I need 2 tables, 16 chairs, and 2 hours of somebody's time to put it all together. And that will be then what actually gets updated when you post the sales order as well. A couple more things I would like to show you in the software, specifically Copilot or Microsoft's AI functionality inside the sales order module specifically. AI has been added to Business Central already in a number of different areas. I have a number of other postings on our CBR Technology channel on YouTube to discuss some of those details. But in the final wholesale related industry functionality, I like to make sure I show you this as well. This is a sales order from one of the customers in there, and instead of trying to find the item and look it up by either item number or customer item number or any other sort of manual process, I'm just going into hitting this button here. This is the Copilot icon that you probably recognize from all of the Microsoft marketing materials, and as you can see here, it has an option in there that says suggest sales lines, and I simply type in manually, add this item and this other item in there. As you can see, I'm adding 2 items at the same time, and I'm using plain English, no special formatting. I'm not even using our item number, I'm using the customer's item number. So the tray 1000B and 2000B is not referring to our Kronos USA item number, but rather to Trade Research item number. And so the Copilot will dissect this manually entered text, which of course I could have copy pasted from an email from a client, from the customer into that prompt box, and it properly translates that into 2 separate line items and puts that onto the sales order, as you can see here. Not only does it handle the 2 line items properly with the 2 proper quantities, but if you recall from a previous conversation, this one other item is actually an assembled item, which is creating an assembly kit on the fly. So just by typing in, hey, add these 2 items with these quantities on there, it updates my sales order properly, and it also created an assembly order. So if I'm looking under the hood and pull up my assembly orders, here I see the 4 conference tables that were ordered from Trade Research, and I can go into quantity to order, and I see the sales order referenced in here as well. So this is a very, very powerful capability that I wanted to make sure I showed you today. And then one final word about sales order module that is relevant to a lot of wholesale and distribution organizations is the ability to handle prepayments properly. So prepayment is usually an option, an issue in accounts payable side and purchasing, but it's also a major issue in the prepayment from customer side of things. So let's say this customer is in not amazing credit standing, and I require at least 50% prepayment before I ship an order. I can put a prepayment percentage on here, and then the software will compute what that portion is, create a prepayment invoice that needs to be paid before the transaction is being released. So when I release this here, it will tell me that the status of the transaction cannot be released, and it needs to be in a status called pending prepayment. So these were just some of the key functions surrounding sales orders and inventory setup inside of Business Central. There's many other aspects to the wholesale distribution industry that is related to purchase order issuance, purchase returns, blanket purchase orders, blanket sales orders, and many other functions and features that we haven't discussed in this brief video. But I wanted to just give you a broad overview of the wholesale distribution related functions that are unique to Business Central, and wanted to give you a sense for the depth and the capabilities of this software product. We're located in California, CBR Technology. My name is Christoph. Please reach out to me or our sales team to discuss your Business Central implementation. We'll be happy to discuss your project with you in greater detail. Take care.